Hello everyone, let's talk about the VA section of IPMAT Rohtak. Now we know that IPMAT Rohtak is a slightly playful exam, which means that on the whole, it does not deviate too much from the past, but it always manages to keep you on your toes a little bit by introducing some small surprises. And the VA section is no different. We know that there are 40 questions. We also know that the marking scheme does not fundamentally change. For every correct answer, you get 4 marks. For every incorrect answer, you get -1. Now, in the past, we have seen that the VA section ranges from easy to moderate. It has never really gone into the difficult territory, which means that it is a fairly scoring section. Out of 40 questions, you can attempt anywhere between, let's say, 30 to 35. It could be 32, 33. It really depends on how good you are at VA. Let's also talk about what the section really tests. There are the usual suspects. There is reading comprehension, there is verbal reasoning. However, the focus of the IPMAT Rohtak VA section has always been vocabulary and grammar in different forms. So these are going to be the differentiators if you want to crack this exam. Let's talk about RC and verbal reasoning first. If you want to be good at RC, reading speed is a must. In the past, we have seen that the number of RC questions can change. It can be anywhere, let's say, between 8 to 12. The number of passages can also change. The length of the passages can also change. And that is what I really meant when I said that the exam is slightly playful. So you have to be prepared for these surprises. But regardless of what this throws at you, you have to be fast. We have seen that if your reading speed is pretty good, then RC can be fairly scoring. At the same time, I would not probably want to do RC at the very beginning. RC is something I might want to come back to once I'm done with the short questions in the section. Nevertheless, I would highly recommend that you attempt RC because it's an open book test. The answers are usually all there, you just have to find them. Now, let's talk about verbal reasoning. Verbal reasoning is not really surprising because we can predict the types of questions that are likely to appear. And if you can predict, you can practice and you can prepare. The usual suspects again are parajumbles, paracompletion, sentence out of context, and so on. Most of us have not really learned to do these question types in school, which means that these are fairly new to everyone. The best way to get better at verbal reasoning is to ensure that you practice these question types. But even more importantly, when you're practicing and you get a question wrong, you need to look at why you went wrong. Unless you systematically eliminate these errors, you're not really going to avoid repeating them. So make sure that for verbal reasoning, you do enough number of questions. And in the exam, make sure that regardless of how interesting the question seems, you do not waste time on them. Because verbal reasoning tends to consume time in case you get caught up. So please remember that time is of the essence. Limit the time that you spent on each question. RC should be done at the end. Verbal reasoning can be attempted first. However, make sure that you don't go overboard in trying to crack a particular question. Now, let's talk about grammar. Grammar is something that most of us don't really like to deal with because it's not very interesting. At the same time, grammar questions are very quick. And if you know the rules, you're very likely to get them right. In the past, we have seen that grammar questions test very, very basic things, such as the difference between it's without the apostrophe and it's with the apostrophe. These are things that barely take you a minute to learn. Now, I'm also going to outline the grammar concepts that you definitely should be aware of. There are others that could be surprising and you may or may not know the answer, but no one can really blame you for anything that is completely unexpected. However, what we can expect questions on for sure would be subject-verb agreement, pronoun errors, tenses, conditional statements, subjunctive mood, modifiers, parallelism, and some other related concepts that you may have already learned in school. For example, direct to indirect speech, active and passive voice. Now, we should not really go by what has been tested in the past because, as I said, the exam keeps throwing new surprises your way. So, you should be prepared for a miscellany of grammar concepts. And finally, let's talk about vocabulary. Now, when I say vocabulary, I'm also including idioms. Vocabulary is tested in multiple ways. It could be a fill-in-the-blank question. it could be a synonym-antonym question, it could be an analogy-based question. Regardless of what question type you're dealing with, one of the fundamental things is that you need to know the meanings of the words. Sometimes the context can help you out. For example, when you're solving a fill-in-the-blank question, even if you know 3 of the words but not know the 4th, maybe you can still figure out the answer. But when you're dealing with synonyms and antonyms, that's not going to happen. We have also seen that in the past, they have thrown very random words your way. For example, there could be a question on phobias, there could be questions on collective nouns. For example, how many of us know that a group of crows is called a murder of crows? So when we learn vocabulary, make sure that you're not doing any selective study. If you have been provided with a list of words or a booklet that you're supposed to go through, start going through it. You don't have to sit and mug it up in one day. Distribute that entire book across days and say that I will finish 1 page every day before I go to sleep every night. It could also be in terms of number of words. I will complete learning 20 words every day. However, since we tend to forget what we learn, please make sure that you revise whatever you have learned during the week at least twice over. So my strategy is learn 20 words a day from Monday to Friday, and on Saturday and Sunday, look it over one more time. Get someone to test you, write it down, create flashcards, create posters. Be creative if that helps you, but you do need to revise. Let's also understand that in case you're questioning whether it is worth the effort, the answer is yes. Vocabulary is a big part of the exam. The more effort you put in, the more you're likely to score. So let's get started with that today. Now, when it comes to idioms, unfortunately, that list is very, very long. So I'm not going to ask you to mug up 3,000 to 4,000 idioms because that does not make any sense. However, it is a good idea to start learning the most familiar ones. So again, if there is a list that you're learning from, start learning that list every day. If there is something that you keep forgetting, create a sentence around it. Start using it in your conversations. So now, what are the 4 areas that you need to be well prepared with? Reading comprehension, where we focus on reading speed. For this, the best way is to read every day. So about half an hour to 45 minutes of reading is going to do you a world of good. Verbal reasoning, you need to practice solving those questions. There is no other way to get better, and analyze your errors. Grammar, please learn the grammar rules. Don't rely on intuition or luck, because if you do that, you're likely to get some very easy questions wrong. And finally, vocabulary and idioms. I know that you cannot learn the entire dictionary, but at least put in an honest effort. And if you put in this kind of effort, you will do well in the VA section. Wish you all the best.